Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tukenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This week our Torah portion is Chayei, Sarah's life, Chayei. As with this week, we will get into the journey of Isaac's life and Sarah's life to the end. So now, Sarah lived to be 127 years old, and she died in Kiryat Arba, also known as Haran, which was a city in Canaan, and it is also known as a pun for the Hebrew place. Now, as this was the case of her death, well, Abraham, who was among the sons of Het, as an alien, sought their guidance in procuring a burial site for his wife Sarah, and they offered him any of their tombs. But you have to understand that this was the first time that the Hebrew person was able and was purchasing their own land or having a piece of land. So Abraham also asked for their help to bury her in the cave of Machpelah, which Ephron, the son of Zorkan, owned. Now, with the sons of Het bearing witness to the transaction, as with following the later law given to Moshe of 2 or more witnesses. So you see right there that Abraham was blessed with wisdom, and he used his shachma to go out there and deliver the tools and the guidance to the people of the land by showing them the way to do things that were the proper techniques and the proper ways of doing them. But now, as with good hospitality, Ephron offered it all for free in front of his people. But Abraham refused to receive it for free, and he ended with giving him 400 silver shekels, which weighed out to about 10 pounds. Thus was the burial site of Abraham's wife Sarah. Now you see, Ephron's public showing was false, and he ripped Abraham off from how much the land was truly worth. And Abraham knew this, but he stayed righteous, Zedek, and gave what he asked. That's why it said Abraham got to the point in verse 16. But now, with all the shachma that Abraham was blessed with, he truly knew that it was time to find a wife for his ben. You see, it got to the point now where Abraham was starting to ask to get his orders in affair, because he understood that it was the time for this, that certain things would be coming soon, and he knew it was time to prepare his family and his inheritance for this. And in doing so, he had his avad, who was in charge of all that he had, Eleazar, to make a promise, a covenant-like one, to find his ben a wife, but to swear not to find one from among the Canaanites that they were living among. You see, Eleazar was in charge of all that he had, so he trusted him with his business affairs and everything else. But when it came to the religious aspect, even though he knew he was a religious devout follower, he still had to show proof that he would make the right choices along the way and do as Abraham requested, rather than just going out and bringing a Canaanite or anybody else back as a wife for his ben. But that he would return to Abraham's hometown and choose his ben a wife from among his very own kinsmen. But Abraham's avad was worried that that woman might not return with him, and asked if that were the case, was he to bring Isaac to her? But Abraham said no. Now, why did he say no? Understand this, because you see, Adonai, the Yahweh of Shamayim, who took him, Abraham, from his father's house and the land of his kindred, spoke and swore to him to give him that land. So he would not have been returned to the ways of old that Yahweh took him out of and from this new promised land. Now following on, the Avad took 10 camels, a caravan, and departed along with all sorts of choice gifts from Abraham, and went to Nahar. Now, as he arrived to the well of water, he did what was righteous, as we should always do. He sought Yahweh's guidance through prayer. To whom shall he choose Isaac's wife? From the woman drawing water. Now Yahweh answered, and before he was finished, Rebekah appeared, in whom was very Tiferet, and in whom was also a virgin. Now eventually, after gazing at her in silence to learn whether Adonai had prospered his journey or not, Eliezer, in other words, testing this spirit, he presented the given gifts of a gold ring and 2 bracelets, golden, seeking to know whose daughter that she was, and if he could spend the night there as well. So she obliged, and he once again bowed his head and thanked Yahweh, confirming in a blessing to Yahweh Adonai for not forsaking his steadfast love and faithfulness toward Abraham, and for leading him on his journey with success. Now following, Rebekah's brother was there as well at the house to present Abraham's servant with great hospitality. Because notice he also said that he had cleared out the house. Now what do you think this clearing of the house was in regards to? I tend to think that it was that he cleared out their idols that were inside of the house, not to offend Eliezer, who was coming in there for his sister. So you see, it came to the point eventually when he also explained what his journey was to Rebekah's family. And he sought their response to know if they would accept and release Rebekah to join him back or not. But now remember, he truly had sought Yahweh's guidance, and in doing so, their response was positive, and thus they obliged to let her go and to become Isaac's wife. Now get this, going back to the different steps that he set out to know if this would be the woman to pick from the watering well. Remember now, he also looked for a woman who had a heart of Yahweh, who would give great hospitality and not offend somebody, and also that would be very smart and intelligent. And how so? Well, understand this. So now, how was it that drinking out of that same watering device that they used, the cup, the bin, the tin, whatever it could have been at the time, that Rebekah would have known or not known if Eliezer was with disease, and if she drunk or had their family drink out of it after she presented it to Eliezer, how would she have known that that wasn't going to cause her family to be sick and carry on that disease that he had? Well, get this. In order not to offend him and to throw the rest of the water out, she used intelligence and said, after I will give water to your camels, so if anything, the camels would have been hit with the disease. So she tested it out by that, and that did not offend Eliezer, but it used intellect. Do you understand? That this was also the type of woman that he was seeking for his servant's bin, so that when the going gets tough, she would know how to react and how to get situations handled in an appropriate, hospitable way without offending others. A true blessing from Yahweh. So back to where we were. So upon the good news, He bound himself before Adonai, and he followed up by presenting Rebekah and her family with the choicest of items. But before leaving, her mother and brother asked if she could stay with them a little longer, up to 10 days more, before she leaves. But just as Yeshua said to his disciples, so now did Abraham's avad, Eliezer stated to them not to interfere with Yahweh's plan or try to prevent it as Satan does. So they asked Rebekah what she shall do, and she agreed to go then. So they sent her away along with her nurse, and they blessed Rebekah as they sent her away. Now, as Isaac was dwelling in Negeb, and went out to meditate in the field or to pray to Yahweh, he lifted his eyes and seen camels coming. And as Rebekah heard whom he was upon approaching, she then veiled and covered herself up as a bride, such as with Yeshua when we will be the bride. So, upon arriving, Abraham's avad explained all to Isaac. So then Isaac took her into his mother's tent, and she became his wife. And after all the pain and hurt from his mother being dead, he had finally become comforted. See, it has been said that while you are a child, you look to your parents for all the comfort, the lovingness, the guiding, the having things prepared and ready for you, being there to fix your boo-boos, your mistakes, or anything else that you have. But as you get older, the look in your eyes to your parents to protect you from everything and to know everything, it fades out as you become wiser. And you realize that they do not know everything. They cannot always protect you. So then the type of love that was always there, it changes over time, and you're looking for that next way to feel the love closest to Yahweh. And in that is your spouse. If you are a man, it is your woman. If you are a woman, it is your man. And once you connect with that person, you find that love again. And that is why it says that you part from your parents and you become one with your spouse. But now, along with him being comforted, so too did Abraham also get comfort. And he took another wife, whose name was Keturah, which means fragrance or sacrifice. And we truly know that he was willing to make the great sacrifice of his son. And she, Keturah, bore him 6 children. You see, and as Yahweh promised, gave all he had to Abraham. And in return, all that he had, he would give later on to his son Isaac. But to all his concubines, well, he gave their sons gifts. And while still living, he sent all of his other sons away from Isaac eastward. Now get this, at 175 years of age, Abraham breathed his last breath and died, a good old man full of years. And Ishmael and Isaac buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field that Abraham had purchased from the Hittites, and there he was buried with Sarah his wife. And soon after, Yahweh blessed Isaac his ben. Also later in time, so too did Ishmael live to a good age of 137. So you see that Yahweh was fulfilling his promise in the covenant that he made. Now it was being passed down to his son, Abraham's son Yitzhak. We surely do have a good father, good Abba. Now, on the subject of being righteous and repenting, well, as in our Haftorah, we see that Melech David learned and repented of his old ways. And when he needed warmth and attendance, and his servants presented him with the Shunammite woman, who was very beautiful, Tiferet, well, she joined him and laid with him to keep him warm at his old age. But get this, he never, ever had any kind of sexual relations with her, because he already learned from the past what he did when he took the other man's wife and went against the ways of Yahweh. And he had 3 choices to make for that, you remember? But one of his bens, the true receiver of the kingdom after David, was the one to stay loyal to the promise of Yahweh likewise. Now, while his brothers tried to take and go behind his back to take his Yahweh-given inheritance, well, the one for himself through Adonai, who, while his father Melech David was of old age, tried to sacrifice and take official steps upon himself, leaving out Yahweh's true king and prophets. See, this is a good lesson for us, because there are many of us who things are not in the will of Yahweh. Things are not for us, but we want to take it, like such as a promotion. You want to get the promotion when you're not ready for that type of work, when it's not something that you're going to be good at. So you would try to go over somebody to take that person's position, even though it wasn't right and proper for you. But later on, you will find out that it wouldn't work, and you'd be in a worse predicament than you were in the prior position that you had. Always remember, Yahweh knows best. And we must have patience if these things are even meant for us, are willed for us. But Yahweh stands firm on his promise and covenants always and forever, right? And so too would he with this situation. And had Melech David let all know about the situation of who he would choose to be king, and who would truly reign after him. And who would it be? Think about it. Exactly, the one who would build the actual temple. And it was Solomon, which means peace, or what? Shalom, just as the true king Melech, Yeshua. Now, speaking of Yeshua, so too did Herod fear and try to prevent him, Yeshua, from becoming the ruler, the Melech. And he too used deception and tried to have the 3 wise men inform him of their finding of Yeshua to have him removed. And soon too, just as did Abraham flee to Egypt for protection, Mitzrayim, well, after the visit from the 3 wise men, well, Yosef received a vision from Yahweh to flee to Egypt for protection within Yahweh from Herod. But remember, Abraham went on his own accord. But this time, Yahweh's telling Yahweh's telling Yosef to go in his will. Now, as Herod felt tricked by the 3 wise men for not returning and to not find out whom to dethrone, well, he sent for all the baby males to be removed. And that all of them that were 2 years old or younger. But remember that they were protected in Yahweh. Because all the flesh, and as we hear it, as the flesh must always pass away, we should know that their nefesh were saved by Yahweh and protected till this day. Now in this happening, thus it fulfilled the prophecy of Jeremiah from Yahweh. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping in loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children, and she refused to be comforted because they are no more. Now, later, another prophecy would soon be fulfilled when Joseph took Yeshua to Nazareth, where he shall be called a Nazarene. Now, always remember that though we may not see or understand Yahweh's master plan, that he is always in control. And we must know that he is the greatest architect. I say to you, don't you agree? And now, we will have the Aaronic blessing. May Adonai bless you and keep you. May Adonai cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Adonai lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. This has been a weekly Messianic Torah portion from Following Yeshua Ministries. For more information or for help, please visit www.followyeshuanow.com. Shabbat Shalom.